immovable force meeting the immovable object. Look at this. He slammed it. Wait a minute. Michael's got it. He got all of it. Michael's got all of it. Oh, right hand. Tyson, right hand. Oh, my God. And for the 20-foot ladder. Ortiz's going to tap. Ortiz did it. He did it. You can't me.
WWE WrestleMania is the biggest spectacle in the entire world. Some even claim it's the biggest event in all of sports and entertainment. Whether you believe that or not, WWE WrestleMania is an extravaganza like none other. Although we have gotten many iconic matches, I still scratch my head to this day and wonder why some of the big matches never happened. Today we'll discuss some of the WWE WrestleMania matches that we should have gotten, but we didn't. When I say WrestleMania 2, what do you think of? Hogan versus King Kong Bundy in a steel cage, and Piper versus Mr. T in a boxing match. The WrestleMania did draw a ton of money for them. However, the better main event for WrestleMania 2 would have been Hogan versus Piper. Fans would have to wait until 1996 to see Hogan versus Piper match with a clean finish. The problem was that it was in WCW, and Hogan was the heel, and it wasn't even for the title. Hogan versus King Kong Bundy was a fine match, but it doesn't stand the test of time, and WrestleMania 2 is not a WrestleMania that many fans go back and watch. If we would have gotten Hogan vs. Piper, WrestleMania 2 would have been a timeless classic. The next one that still baffles me is Ric Flair vs. Hulk Hogan. What we got instead was WrestleMania 8, Ric Flair vs. Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan vs. Sid Justice. Ric Flair versus Randy Savage is an amazing match that still stands the test of time. On the other hand, Sid versus Hogan, well, it doesn't. Hogan was stripped from the WWF Championship and it was vacated. Ric Flair was claiming himself as the real world's champion when he came into the WWE. Then, in the 1992 Royal Rumble, Ric Flair would win the match and become WWE Champion. This was a perfect setup for Hogan to claim that he never really lost his championship and that he should versus Flair at WrestleMania. When it comes to the 80s and 90s, there's always a discussion on who's a better wrestler, Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan. WWE did a round of house shows with Hogan vs. Flair and they claim it wasn't really a big draw for them, but I call BS on that. I think what it really comes down to, I'm not sure this is the truth, but I believe that doesn't work for me, brother. WrestleMania 2000 is a pretty lackluster WrestleMania and it doesn't feature many singles matches. The main event that we got was The Rock versus Triple H versus The Big Show versus Mick Foley. The main event we should have gotten was The Rock versus Triple H. In fact, they did the Triple H versus The Rock match a month later with The Rock capturing the WWE Championship from Triple H. There was no reason to do the four-way match except for the tagline, a McMahon in every corner. Foley had a retirement match at No Way Out 2000 and should have been done. The Big Show? Well, he should have done something to set up his program with Shane McMahon for the match that they would eventually have at Judgment Day. Again, The Rock and Triple H did have a great match for them at Backlash, so having them face off at WrestleMania would have been perfect, and they could have even done a rematch at Backlash. Instead, we got the forgettable four-way match. At WrestleMania 18, we got one of the biggest WrestleMania matches of all time, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. However, there is no reason why we shouldn't have got Austin versus Hogan. Even having the opportunity to have Austin versus Hogan means that it should have happened. Austin Hogan really already had a program going with the NWO that led to Austin versus Scott Hall. If you just simply flipped those two matches, you could have had Rock versus Scott Hall and Austin versus Hogan, which would have been amazing. Some say the match quality wouldn't have been as good, but I honestly think they could have gelled perfectly. Austin and Hogan would have been a great brawl for the ages, and it could have even included interference by the NWO that would have made the match even better. The sad thing is that Austin versus Hogan never ever happened. The Streak versus the Streak at WrestleMania 20 would have been perfect. Instead, we got Goldberg versus Brock, who stunk up the joint, and Undertaker versus Kane, which, well, we already seen at this point. Goldberg was on his way out, and that's possibly the reason why we didn't get Goldberg versus Taker. However, that just means that Goldberg would have been the one taking the pinfall this time. Goldberg is a perfect WrestleMania opponent for The Undertaker. CM Punk and a WrestleMania main event that should have happened. WrestleMania 29 was the exact spot to do it. At the Royal Rumble, The Rock lost to CM Punk because of the interference by The Shield. They then restarted the match and The Rock won the title. However, to get to Mania, you should have had CM Punk actually retain the title with that interference. Cena would have won the Rumble to get his spot for the main event of Mania. However, The Rock could challenge Cena for his Mania spot at Elimination Chamber. CM Punk wouldn't even need a match at Chamber. He could sit ringside and watch the match. They could have it so Cena vs. Rock match goes to a draw when CM Punk interferes. Then Vince McMahon could make Punk defend his title in a triple threat match at WrestleMania. This would make Punk livid. Then he could finally lose at WrestleMania. Punk could take the pinfall from John Cena. The Rock would be protected very good here, and he would not look weak as he wouldn't be the one taking the pinfall. We already got Cena versus The Rock at this point, so we didn't need to see it again. CM Punk's title reign is epic. It lasted over 300 days, and it definitely should have spanned all the way to WrestleMania. It's a damn shame that CM Punk never got his WrestleMania main event that he deserved. We said this before, but it is true in this case. If you have the opportunity to do the match, you should do it. I'm talking about The Undertaker versus Sting at WrestleMania 31. What we got was The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt and Triple H versus Sting. Triple H ended defeating Sting, what most people really dislike. If The Undertaker versus Sting was going to happen, this would be that time that it would happen. You could flip-flop the matches. Triple H could take on Bray Wyatt in a great match, and The Undertaker could take on Sting in the match for the ages. You could continue The Undertaker's streak by having him defeat Sting. I mean, Sting even lost to Triple H, so what does it even matter at this point? If you're going to keep the streak going, and you're going to have Sting in the company, you should just put this match together. This was the one and only great opportunity that you had to create an epic WrestleMania match with The Undertaker and Sting, and we never got it. They never faced off in the WWE, and they never will face off in the WWE. The Undertaker's retired, and Sting is no longer in the WWE. Triple H wanted to tell this story of WWE versus WCW when it shouldn't have been about that at all. They should have just done The Undertaker versus Sting. If you really wanted to tell that WWE versus WCW storyline, you have the story there. Undertaker never left WWE once he went there. Sting never left WCW when he went there. The story's told right there. Instead, Triple H inserted himself and beat Sting, where we really should have saw The Undertaker and Sting at WrestleMania 31. Well, there it is. There's some WrestleMania main event matches that should have happened, but they never did. I'm still clamoring for a couple of them. Austin and Hogan, Undertaker and Sting, WrestleMania, the epic matches that should have happened. I want to know from you guys, though, what WrestleMania matches did we not get that you think you would have liked to see? Let me know in the comments section below and sound off with your opinion. Well, thank you guys for watching this. If you guys do enjoy, make sure you smash that like button.